The main question, does the Bible hate gay people? The core issue regarding faith and identity comes down to interpretation, because the Bible was not written in modern English or in today's cultural context. It actually originated from ancient societies that held completely different understandings of gender, sexuality, and relationships. That is precisely why modern scholars and believers disagree so intensely on this topic. Some people read the text literally and historically, while others choose to analyze it strictly through the lens of historical context, original language, and broader overarching themes. But what about the big message of the Bible? Here's something that people often miss completely. At its core, the Bible consistently emphasizes love, justice, mercy, and human dignity. Furthermore, Jesus himself never directly talks about LGBTQ plus people in any of the accounts. What he actually focuses on instead is loving others, rejecting hypocrisy, and standing firmly with people who are marginalized by society. That fact matters a lot in how many Christians approach this topic today. Because of this, look at where Christians stand today. There is absolutely not one single unified Christian position on this issue. Some churches openly oppose LGBTQ plus relationships. Some churches fully affirm and celebrate LGBTQ plus people, and other churches find themselves somewhere in the middle. So the truth is that the answer depends entirely on which specific community or interpretation you are looking at. Let me be completely real with you about this situation. If someone tells you that the Bible clearly says this and there is no debate, that statement is just not accurate. There is major debate happening right now, and it is serious, ongoing, and thoughtful. What matters much more is how you personally understand faith, how you choose to interpret Scripture, and how you treat other human beings. This is because even within Christianity itself, many people firmly believe you can follow God and fully affirm LGBTQ plus people, while others choose to follow a more traditional interpretation. Another question, does the Bible hate immigrants? No, the Bible absolutely does not teach hatred toward immigrants. In fact, it repeatedly and fiercely commands the exact opposite. Let us look at what the Bible actually says across both the Old and New Testaments, because there is a massive, undeniable theme of welcoming and protecting foreigners, immigrants, and strangers. Just look at Leviticus chapter 19, verses 33 to 34, which explicitly states that when a foreigner resides among you, you must not mistreat them, but you must love them as yourself. Then look at Exodus chapter 22, verse 21, which commands you to not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, because you yourself were foreigners in Egypt. Deuteronomy chapter 10, verses 18 to 19, describes God as actively loving the foreigner and providing for them, and it commands people to do the exact same thing. This is part of a much bigger pattern that the Bible keeps coming back to constantly. You must remember what it is like to be vulnerable. You must not abuse power over outsiders. You must treat strangers with absolute dignity and fairness. This was never optional. It was a fundamental part of the moral law for ancient Israel. And what about Jesus? Jesus completely reinforces this exact mindset. He explicitly teaches love for your neighbor without ever narrowing down who actually counts as a neighbor. In Matthew chapter 25, he directly connects caring for the stranger with serving God himself. Do not forget that his own life included being a refugee when his family had to flee to Egypt for safety. So why exactly do people disagree so much today? Like many modern issues, people choose to bring modern politics and their own personal beliefs into how they read Scripture. Some individuals prefer to emphasize laws, borders, and order, while others choose to emphasize compassion and inclusion. But here is the grounded, undeniable truth. The Bible never teaches hatred toward immigrants. It consistently and boldly pushes humanity toward compassion, justice, and hospitality. Here is the bottom line. If someone is actively using the Bible to justify hating immigrants, they are simply not reflecting its core message very well at all. A much more faithful reading of the text asks this critical question. How do we treat vulnerable people with real dignity while also being wise? And just now going back to LGBTQA subject, Leviticus 18:22 and 20:13, you shall not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. If you reread all of those pages, you will find the whole story behind these verses and why they were written. They were not created against LBGTQ, written by the Apostle Paul in the context of Roman pagan culture. Likely referring to excess, lust, and exploitation, temple prostitution, power-based sexual relationships, like masters with slaves, Paul is building a larger argument about human brokenness overall, not isolating one group. The word natural, physis in Greek, can mean customary, not necessarily. Biologically fixed. This passage is less about loving, committed same-sex relationships as we understand them today, and more about unchecked desire and misuse of others. The sin described is attempted gang rape, not consensual love. The story is about violence. Lack of hospitality, power, and domination later in the Bible, Ezekiel 16:49. Sodom's sin is described as pride is a sin, neglect of the poor is a sin, injustice is a sin, but not homosexuality. Love always. Feel free to follow for more.